Okay, second grade, I am going to show you how you can make a spiderweb work of art using line direction. In your Google slide, you'll see there is an image reviewing line direction. So lines that are going up and down are vertical, lines that go straight across are horizontal, and lines that cross are diagonal. Lines that are diagonal don't always cross. It's easier to remember them if you think of an X, but they could also be parallel, where they're going the same direction, but they go diagonally, okay? So what we're gonna do to start our line direction spider webs is you need a piece of paper, preferably white. If you only have notebook paper, that's okay too. It's a little bit easier to make your basic lines with a ruler if you have one. So what I'm going to do first is just make a crisscross in the middle of my paper. And it doesn't have to be divided or folded or anything like that. If you look at my example, this is slightly above the center, but close enough. And then so I did a straight line up and down, and now I'm going to go across using my ruler to help me get those nice straight base lines. So I've done a vertical and a horizontal line. What comes next? My diagonal lines. Hopefully you have a long ruler. If you have a little space left over, you just kind of line that up and scoot your ruler down so you can get all the way to the end there. And then I'm going to do that on the other side as well. Okay. And sometimes it won't always line up at the absolute corner, okay? So all these lines did, but this one's kind of off and this one's kind of off. It doesn't meet the corner exactly. Not a big deal. This paper isn't square. If your paper was square, everything would line up perfectly. Honestly, I sometimes like things just a little off. I think it looks more interesting. More stories come from that. So once you've got those basic lines drawn, here comes the fun part. This is where line variety comes in. In kindergarten and first grade, you learned about line variety. So lines can have directions, but they can also be curved, zigzag, loopy. Oopsie, I kind of messed up. No problem. You can also use a big eraser if you need one. That's kind of nice for mistakes. And I'm just gonna clean up that line a little bit, okay? So that's the inside part of my spider web. You can see that. And then all I'm going to do is repeat that. So this is really good practice when we talk about repetition in an artwork. That is another visual art element. Repetition in an artwork creates harmony, and it also makes your artwork more interesting. And we talk about visual art elements at different times, at different ages, stages, and grades. So that's why when you were in kindergarten and first grade, you learned about line variety, because line variety is kind of a nice transition into line direction. So this one, I've made my lines a little bit closer. If you're not comfortable making this many lines in your web and you don't want your web that intricate or that close together, you could create wider space in between these. Or I've seen some people do their lines straight. Most of the time real spider webs have a kind of a combination of straight and curved lines. So if you want to make it more like a real spider web, this is the way you do it. If you're just more comfortable making straight lines, you can do that. If you want to get really wacky, you can do all sorts of different lines if you don't want it to be repetitive or consistent. So that's where you get a lot of choice. So I'm just going to finish sketching out these webby lines here. Maybe these go a little wider as we go out. Okay, so now that I've got all of that drawn in, this is where you would want to take your next step. My first step, as I always say this, we may not remember from last year, but use a pencil so you can draw light until you've got it right. Draw light till you've got it right so you can erase your mistakes. Then go darker and trace the lines you just drew with marker. If you don't have markers and you want to trace your pencil lines that you just drew with a black crayon, that's okay too. Just as fine, just as good. So what I did was I kind of worked from the middle out. So then that way I don't have to use my ruler again, friends. If you get kind of tired of using the ruler, you can just trace your lines shorter because it's a lot easier to trace a shorter line and keep it straight than it is a longer line. So then you're just going to keep doing this. And it seems like a lot of work, but if you need to take a break and stretch your hands out if they get tired, wrist rolls, that always helps when I'm doing a lot of artwork and detail. So you're going to keep doing that until you get all the way to the edge. Just make sure you don't forget to outline any leftover pencil lines. Now, here's an example. If you don't follow the lines perfectly when you're done, you could always clean up any stray pencil lines with your eraser. Okay, mine smudged a little bit, so make sure it's dry before you erase if you have slippery paper. I'm working on cardstock, so that's why that's doing that. And then you can keep your web just as it is, but if you want to include a spider, you can. If maybe you don't like spiders and they kind of creep you out, just leave him out of there. Just the web looks really pretty, okay? Harmless web without a spider. If you want to add a spider, in your Google Slides, there's some facts about spiders. So we know that they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 legs. You're going to draw 4 legs on one side, 4 legs on the other side. So your spider is balanced. You don't want him falling over if he has 5 legs here and 3 legs here. That would be terrible. Okay, if you want to add some little pinchers on him, you can. Give him some eyeballs. You maybe do a little hourglass, red hourglass on the back. That'd be a black widow spider. Make a dangerous spider if you want to. Or maybe you want a family of spiders. You can give this spider some babies or some friends. Up to you. How you would draw a spider is before you start tracing your black lines, you want to draw your spider out first. So how you would do that is you could draw a nice little circle for a head. And then I like to do sort of an oval body. Spiders' bodies are oval and sometimes they're pointed. And then you could add some little eyes here and pinchers. Again, this is all line variety. And then you'd outline Mr. Spider here. Okay, and then if you wanted to add a design on the back, you could. Okay, you could do that, and then start coloring him in with marker or crayon. Okay, and then for the other sections, I'm just going to color the body here very quickly. It's kind of hard to do this standing up. And then you would finish coloring that in. Finish your outlines, and once you've got your outlines done, here's where you can kind of fill in all of your webs, the spaces in between them, with color. Okay, again, it might take you a little while to do this, so just take your time. And like I said, if you need an art break, take a break, go outside, get some fresh air, stretch your legs, and then come back and just work on it little bits at a time. I would say once you have it drawn and outlined, the color part could be worked on in what I call intervals. So if you want to work on it in intervals or phases, you can do a little bit at a time and keep adding to it as you go. I like to kind of vary marker and crayons. That's what I did for this one. Several sections are in marker and several are in crayon, and I think it just kind of makes it look a little bit more cool that way. I like this color, so we'll go in here, and then you would color in another section. And it's going to be a lot neater when you're sitting down. I'm standing up, so it's a little bit tricky. And I'm going kind of fast, so my video is not super long. So you can, if you have a wood grain table, I highly recommend putting another piece of paper or a clipboard or some flat, smooth surface underneath. Otherwise, you're going to pick up the grain from your table. I have that happen a lot. So just work on it and do your best. and we will talk about these and share them. So there's a lot of spiders this time of year, and conveniently that sort of goes with Halloween with all of our spider decorations for Halloween. So have fun with this. Again, if you don't like spiders, just leave it off and enjoy the colorful web, okay? All right, I'll talk to you soon, friends. Enjoy your project.